Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Roger's Real-Time Talk Show event. I'm Roger Hanson, and today we are getting into the fourth part of my conversation on law, I guess. Today, I want to discuss civil law. Now, we went through and discussed the well, let me kind of go back through a fast one. We went through and kind of broke out to the judiciary laws, discussed separation of state, and the executive, the budget of the judiciary, stuff like that. Then in part two, we talked some about the Constitution and the United States Code and codification of laws, things of that nature. We also started talking about how each state has its own constitution as well as a federal constitution. I was trying to get information from Mark Edworthy about England and if they had a constitution. We had a little bit of a conversation about it the other day with Tan. And it does seem odd to me that most people in Europe and in England don't know for sure if they have a constitution or not. You know what I mean? So that's one subject that really popped out whenever we started talking about that. But after that, we went into the third part, which I got into criminal law and how it regulates social conduct and stuff like that, and how it prohibits undesirable acts and everything like that, regulatory offenses and mens rea, stuff of that nature. So then on the fourth part, I just did a recap and talked about corruption of the judiciary through budget planning and privileges that are set by both the state and private. Started talking about non-governmental organizations, things of that nature. Then mostly did a recap on the budget of the judiciary. That's one big thing that really I should discuss more, but I haven't. And maybe someday we can get somebody in here who we could have a really good conversation about that, because a lot of corruption in most countries, not just here in the United States, is done through the budget, through the government budget, where they fund the judiciary mostly. Then after that, I started discussing plenary powers, like the president has the power to pardon. The Congress has the power or plenary power to extend its plenary power to pass laws, levy taxes, wage wars, arrest people, and then not only can they, or do they have that power, but they can extend it to these non-governmental organizations, which I've talked quite a bit about. I believe in it. I've covered that quite a bit. So now Congress, whenever I'm saying plenary powers, I'm saying it has unlimited powers to do this. They can pass laws and levy taxes and stuff like that, and it's unlimited. There's no limit to it. So Congress can also create charters, and that's what I'm talking about. They have duplicity of its plenary powers, and like when you have the Federal Reserve, you have the IRS, you have the Social Security Office here all in the United States, Okay, those aren't government offices, and a lot of people believe they are, but they're not. What they are, they're non-government organizations that have been given plenary power with duplicity from Congress to do their job, basically. And the reason why they do that is because it's constitutionally illegal for those organizations to run as government offices. Now, it's legal for the United States Postal Service to be a government office, and the driver's DMV, the driver and motor vehicles, it's legal for them, okay? But like the Social Security Office, the IRS, the Federal Reserve, all of those are constitutionally illegal, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. Well, then I started talking some about the United States Code, and I want to go into that but in order to do that, I'm going to have to talk on the subject that I'm bringing up today, which is civil law, because that's where a lot of the codification comes from. What the United States Code is the official compilation codification of general and permanent federal statutory laws, and that's where you get into the term statutory laws. Now, when you get into those, that's where you start, it starts blending in, and you have to watch out with like the Constitution of the United States, the federal law, the big law that's not state constitutions, because like I said, we've got the federal constitution, and then each state has their own constitution, so they have to really be very careful about how they codify their laws and everything. Now, after that, I went in, and that's when I started discussing about the federal constitution not being not being universal. It's limited, and that's because it's limited to just one constitution, whereas each state has their own constitution, which some states give a little bit more freedom to its citizens, where some states don't give as much freedoms to its citizens. So you have a diversity of laws that are taking place in each state within the United States. And we had a conversation about that too, and I was asking, like, does Canada have its own constitution? And Tan told me that they do, so I know that is happening there, and that goes according to a constitution constitution that was set up in England that he mentioned. Maybe sometime we can go over it and get the details on that, but me, Tan, and Mark had a conversation about this last Friday in Mine's roundtable weekend, or Mine's weekend roundtable event, or however I named it, and it was a pretty good conversation. So I ended up getting the end of the conversation because I walked away to get my coffee and come back, and they were talking cool stuff. You know, they always wait for me to leave before they talk about the cool stuff, so because I'm not as smart as they are. But anyhow, I got to say a little bit. I got a little bit in on it, so that's what happened there. We started talking about it, and then now we come to the civil law. Now, civil law, or it's short for civilian law, it's actually a legal system that originated out of Europe. It was intellectualized within the framework of late Roman, with features and core principles that are codified into a referable system and serves as the primary source of law. So, civil law contrasts with common law, whose intellectual framework comes from judge-made decision laws, which gives authority to prior court decisions on the principle that it is unfair to treat similar facts different on different occasions. Now that's stare decisive. Okay, so the thing that comes down to it is, let me go on further and then we'll cover this, because the important thing is to remember stare decisive. That's what makes things important between all of this. Like, civil law is, and its framework, like I said, is, it comes from judge-made, civil law contrasts from common law. Common law is, it comes from judge-made decisions, where civil law, it is just a framework of late Roman law, and it's codified. Okay, it's a codified system, and I'll go further here, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Now, historically, civil law is the group of legal ideas and systems derived from the Code of Justinian, but heavily overlaid with Napoleonic and Germanic, canonical, feudal, and local practices. Civil law also has doctrines strange such as natural law, codification, and legal positivism. Okay. Now, natural law is something that I do want to get into, because that's pretty crazy. I never thought about natural law the way I do now, since I've actually done the research on this stuff, but that's some pretty messed up. It's messed up what that's really about. So I do want to make an episode where I discuss freaking natural law. I'm not going to get into it too much now, because I want to have all my notes up and ready so that I can go through them and kind of get into it. Legal positivism is another thing, and you'll see that in a lot of things that are going on in Europe today, in England too. Like, there's a lot of liberalism being pushed on the United States coming from Europe, and the reason why is because they're trying to push statutory laws at the United States and making our Constitution irrelevant, basically. So that is something that really does need to be discussed too, because it's like I said in my other episode just before this, when it comes to constitutional government, I mean, I'm no big fan of constitutional governments. I have my disagreements with it, just like everybody else does, but it's the closest thing to freedom that we've got. You can bitch and yell all you want, but there's a lot worse that can be done to us than what we've got now. I mean, like I said, I do have my disagreements with it. I don't think that it's like 100%, but at the same time, we could have worse. So it's the closest that we do have. But I also find it disturbing that there's an uptick in positivism and natural law going on in the United States as well. And to me, I personally believe that that's coming from Europe. Just like these statutory laws, there's things that we have allowed to take place here in the United States that really shouldn't have taken place. It just made it easier on people, so they decided to let it go. You know what I mean? And it's not just us, it's our parents who allowed the stuff. It's our grandparents. The New Deal, that wasn't very good. It was actually a horrible, horrible thing that led to a lot of the problems we have here in the United States today. A lot of people think that was a great deal, and it wasn't. It was one of the biggest mistakes that probably could have happened in our government. And I personally do feel that. So that's one thing that I do want to also talk about, as well as natural law. But codification is something that really hits with civil law. Now, conceptually, civil law proceeds from abstraction, formulates general principles, and distinguishes substantial rules from procedural rules. Now, civil law holds case law secondary and subordinate to statutory laws. So, in civil cases, what that means is they don't go off of previous judgments from judges, okay? What they go off of is statutory laws that have been written from old civil laws, statutory laws that, like I said, originated from old Napoleonic Justinian laws and Germanic and canonical feudal laws from a long time ago. I mean, these statutory laws go all the way back, and for me personally, I don't like that. Because from what I've been finding out, people have been signing these laws into practice, and it's not being voted on. They're just being pushed out there by government officials that aren't even voted into office. Codified laws that we don't even get to vote on. We've got frickin' seatbelt laws, and we got mandatory insurance for driving, and now they're trying to push universal insurance on us, where everybody has to have universal insurance and stuff. And like I said, it comes from Europe. Who's got all those things going on right now? You know what I mean? You know how much money it takes for a person to frickin' live and then pay all these frickin' mandatory insurance laws? And it goes even farther than that. Now cities are able to frickin' fine you because of the height of your grass, or what your yard looks like, you know what I mean? All of this stuff is code, you know what I mean? City code, state code, federal code, all of that, and we just allowed it to happen, They came in, they frickin' started making codified laws for this stuff. And then we sit back and we wonder why frickin' our life sucks, You're wondering why you have to pay frickin' for 30 years to pay off your house, Well, it's because you got all this crazy shit coming in. You're having to pay income taxes to a frickin' organization that's constitutionally illegal. You allowed it, your parents allowed it, your grandparents allowed it, and everybody's like, oh, that's just the way it is. No, that's not the way it is. Stop allowing this stuff to happen, and things won't be mandatory like you think they are. Now, with the concept of codification, I can go on further with that. I got notes from a long time ago, so I'll read a little bit of this. And it says, the concept of codification was further developed during the 17th and 18th century as an expression of both natural law and the idea of enlightenment. The political idea of that era was expressed by the concepts of democracy, protection of property, and the rule of law. That idea required the creation of certainty of law through the recording of law and through its uniformity. So they're more interested in the certainty of law, and they want these laws to be recorded in uniformity, so they have to be uniform. You know what I mean? They don't care about case by case. They care about the laws being in uniformity. So the aforementioned mix of Roman laws and customary and local laws ceased to exist, and the road opened for law codification, which could contribute to the aims of the above-mentioned political idea. Another reason that contributed to codification was that the notion of the nation-state required the recording of the law that would be applicable to the state. So that's just a bunch of jargon at the end. But the one thing that I noticed when it came to all this is, first of all, I don't like the idea of still living according to Roman law. And second thing I noticed is I don't want to obey a law that concerns uniformity. You know what I mean? That is just crazy. I've ever since I've heard about this stuff and I've listened to it, it's really, I really don't like the idea of what civil law really means. I've also had some personal experiences when it comes to civil law. I tried to bring it up before when I was talking about custody laws and everything, and with non-custodial parents, which that's what I am, and it went the wrong direction is what I'm trying to say. You know, I was aiming for something else, but instead I ended up getting 2 interviews from people who were were red-pilled and talking about women and trying to be, anti-woman or something. Well, they don't claim to be anti-woman, but it wasn't what I expected. You know what I'm saying? I'm more serious about this stuff. I don't want to talk about how horrible women are and them fucking bitches, and stupid stuff like that. I mean, that's not what I'm about. I was trying to talk about non-custodial parents' rights and like how being refused being refused the right to frickin' see their children, the non-custodial parents and stuff. I personally had threats that the police would be called if I went out to see my son, because my son lives with his mom and their grandparents and everything out in the country. So, it was constantly that. If I went out to see him, I'd be arrested. The cops would be called on me and stuff like that. And they got away with it. I mean, that was basically what it was about, and for me, I didn't want to focus on all of that. I could have easily said, that she was so-and-so and all this shit, but I didn't want to go there because of the one thing that that really messed me up. It wasn't my ex-girlfriend. It wasn't her family. It wasn't the threats. It wasn't any of that. What really screwed me up was the legal welfare system. Now, everybody loves to talk about, oh, those people on food stamps. Oh, those people on food stamps. All those people on welfare. They don't understand there's more to the welfare system than food stamps and frickin' welfare checks. You got the juvenile court systems. You got frickin' child support, enforcement. You have frickin' the frickin' family services. You got the foster care. All this is the welfare system. Children are frickin' falling through the cracks on a daily basis. There's children in foster homes that are vanishing, disappearing without a trace. Okay, and it's been going on for freaking decades, and nobody seems to care about that. You know what I mean? Then that's what really alarmed me, was when I had to deal with that. What happened is my ex-girlfriend ended up getting real bad into drugs and alcohol, and mind you, I was sober, and I was away from her for a good 3-4 years at that point, and not seeing my son. And I ended up getting a knock on the door. Well, I get a knock on the door, and there's a police officer standing there with a subpoena saying that I need to show up for court. So I take the subpoena and I read it, and it says that I need to show up for court because of my ex-girlfriend getting in trouble with the law, and my rights could be taken away from me because she got in trouble. Okay, so I turn around and I was like, okay, I'll show up. So I show up for court, and when I get there, they don't even know how I even received the summons that I was supposed to get to freaking show up for court. Okay? According to them, they took the word of my ex-girlfriend that I was nowhere to be found, and they didn't even bother searching for me. I live maybe 15 miles away from my son. Okay? All they had to do was a diligent search, and they would have been able to find me. But they didn't. Somehow I ended up getting a summons in the mail. I have no idea how it happened, but I ended up showing up for court, and that was when you would think everything would be better, because at least I showed up for court. But that wasn't it. It actually got worse. Okay. Now, one thing I also wanted to talk about too was like, you have to be careful when you deal with these things, okay? Like, for me, I didn't understand terminology all that well when I first got into this situation. I didn't understand that when I was asking for a lawyer to help me with custody, I should have actually been saying visitation, because one thing that slowed me down quite a bit was I tried to call a lawyer that was recommended to me to get visitation rights. I was recommended to call him, and I told him I wanted custody rights, and he said, well, good luck with that. And I never realized that they were talking about custody, whereas I was meaning visitations, but I said custody instead. Now, understand if you're in that situation and you're wanting to see your kid, you need to say visitation, because I didn't do that, and that slowed me down. At least I'm letting you know what I mean, because that was a mistake I made. So okay, now The thing that got me the most was with my oldest son. Back when I was 19, I had my first son, and I've never had a good track record with women. I never married my second son's mom. Okay, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I did ask her to marry me, but things happened, and things went bad. Is all I can say. And the first one was a teen pregnancy, and my first son's mom ran off with my son and my oldest boy, and I tried to find him, and the only way I knew, I didn't even know his name at the time because she was still pregnant when she ran off with him, and I didn't even know what she had named him. So I contacted child support enforcement, and now see, the thing with child support enforcement is if you're a non-custodial parent and they want money from you, they'll bust their hump to search you down and find out who you are and where you're located and all that stuff. But if you are a non-custodial parent trying to find out where your son is or your daughter is, whatever, they won't help you. As a matter of fact, they refuse service, okay, because they are legally told that they are not allowed to freaking search or give you that information. They cannot give you that information legally, okay, but they can hunt you down for freaking child support like a dog, you know what I mean? But they can't assist you. They can't assist you at all. That was something that I thought was messed up. And then with my second son, when my girlfriend was going through troubles with drug addiction and everything, and I needed help from this legal service that was supposed to be, it's called Land of Lincoln here in Illinois. But when I called them up and I tried to get assistance from them and help from them, I got an automated question service instead of speaking to a real person on the phone. All right, I called up the number, I dialed up, hit the buttons they wanted me to, and then they asked me questions with an automated question service. It wasn't even a real person. And then, instead of having a real person refuse service to me, the freaking automated question service refused service to me. So I never even had a chance to talk to a human being about it. You know what I mean? They just wanted to know what my freaking age was, what my marital status was, what was I married with her, single, what my freaking financial status was. It all concerns age, race, marital status, and financial status. And after that, they just flat turned me down. So that's something that really disturbed me there. Now these are also, let me point out, non-governmental organizations that are supposed to be doing the job of the supposed court systems, okay? So they're not even constitutionally legal, and they are able to do that, you know what I mean? I've already talked to you about the freaking child support enforcement and things of that nature. So, the thing that really got me is that when it comes to the juvenile court system in civil cases, okay? Now, the DCFS has the right to force parents into juvenile court on a civil case, and that's without being charged with a crime. No crime whatsoever, okay? Your kid, let's take my story out of the equation, All right. Let's say your kid is skipping school. All right. Let's just say your kid's skipping school and he does it a whole lot, and you don't have any clue that this is going on because you're going to work, you're coming home, and by the time you get home, your kid is already supposed to have been out of school, done his homework, everything, right? Come to find out, for the last month and a half, your kid hasn't been going to school, he's just been skipping. All right? And you find out. You know how you find out? You find out because a police officer is knocking on your door, forcing you to show up for juvenile court. And if you don't show up to juvenile court, you go to jail because your kid decided he didn't want to go to school. Okay? And then when you get to juvenile court, you know what happens? They make you take classes. They make you pay for a freaking attorney. They make you freaking pay for freaking court costs. And you have to freaking pay these things. Or, guess what? You go to jail and your kid gets taken away from you because your kid decided not to go to school. So, these are the kind of things that freaking I found out. And you don't even have to freaking be brought up on a criminal charge. Not one criminal charge can be brought up against you. This is all civil case, and that's it. It's a civil case. It has nothing to do with you being a criminal. Now, after that, the DCFS investigators have a right to waive searches for non-custodial parents, and that's what they did with me. And not only did they do that with me, but freaking they took the word of the woman who caused all the shit in the first place. It was my ex-girlfriend. You know, they're the ones that popped her freaking with drugs and everything, and then turns around and takes her word that freaking I was nowhere to be found. You know, so what they did is they just went ahead and waived the search because they're lazy and they didn't want to do their job. All right. Now, that is required of them according to their own DCFS rules and procedures. It's required that they do a diligent search during their investigations, but they can also waive it. And that was their chance to freaking not do it because they didn't want to do their job. You know, I brought that up. Nothing ever came out of it. And like me being the non-custodial parent, I had no rights about knowing what was being discussed in court about the case concerning my son whatsoever. They wouldn't give me no information. They wouldn't tell me nothing. They wouldn't. I could understand, you know, if with my ex-girlfriend, you know, she had a case going on where she had to freaking obey what DCFS wanted, and that was her deal. You know what I mean? This was my son, so that kind of upset me there that they wouldn't, you know, disclose information to me about it. They set him up with his own lawyer. You know what I mean? And I had to have a lawyer, and my ex-girlfriend had to have a lawyer, and we're all sitting there with lawyers. But guess what? My lawyer wouldn't even say nothing to the court about what I wanted. I actually called him on the phone, and he told me that he wouldn't get involved whatsoever. He says, usually when I get cases like this, it's usually a crazy man who's freaking going nuts and wanting to get irate and shit, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there listening to him like, are you freaking kidding me, dude? You know, and I told the freaking judge that I wanted a new freaking public defender, and he wouldn't give me one. He said, there's none available. So I didn't even have the right to freaking get a different public defender, you know? And that's another thing that I can bring up at another time about public defenders. Everybody's like, well, if you're defending yourself, then you have an idiot for a freaking client. You know what I mean? Well, maybe you should find out what happens when you freaking sign your name on a freaking piece of paper for a public defender. You waive all rights to speak in court. That person has the right to speak for you, and that's it. If you want to speak to the judge, you have to ask for permission. He can refuse to even let you speak in court. Okay, so be careful about that. If you can't afford a freaking lawyer, don't freaking get a public defender. Honestly, don't get a public defender. Alright. So, if the custodial parent is in trouble with the law or DCFS, and then a non-custodial parent is also in trouble, and both have to show up in court to keep their parental rights. Now see, in that situation, I wasn't even in the equation. I wasn't even around, okay? But since she got in trouble, it's not just her ass in a sling, it's her ass and my ass in a sling. That goes with everybody, not just a certain case by case, alright? That goes by every case. If one parent gets in trouble, you both are in trouble. So understand that. If a child is being threatened to be taken out of the family and one parent is involved who caused the problems, that means both of you are in trouble. So just understand that. That's where the civil law comes into place. It's about statutes. They don't care about previous cases or anything like that. This is about statute law, not case law. So just remember that. If the custodial parent is in trouble with the law, okay, I already did that. Now you both have to show up in order to keep your parental rights, but they have a loophole now. Like, you can still have your parental rights as a non-custodial parent just by showing up, but then they can turn around and give guardianship to anybody they choose. Okay, so you can still have your parental rights, but this is the guardian of your child. See, that's another loophole they can get away with. So just be aware that that's going to happen too. So, and this is the stuff that this court system does. Okay, and all the time they're wrapping up money. You know what I mean? The freaking public defenders are getting paid. The freaking state's attorney's getting paid. The prosecuting attorney, whoever, you know, the judge, all these people in the courtroom, they're getting money from this. They're getting money, and it's creating a freaking monopoly. You know what I mean? It's like they go out and they get all these kids, they freaking get them in, you know, get the parents in trouble, they start freaking making money off of it. I mean, it's a big business now. So that's the one thing that you got to understand. This is how our government's getting corrupt. They're doing it through the juvenile system, and then they hide behind privacy laws in order to do it. All right, now the juvenile systems have been freaking manipulating the law so bad and doing it in secrecy so that the public can't freaking tell what's going on. You know, Mark said that he thought for sure that he could find court cases, and he never got back to me on it. And I know why he never got back to me on it, because he can't find them. They're sealed. You're not allowed to freaking have them. If it concerns a child, you don't get to hear the cases. Now, you might be able to find blogs and stuff like that, but that's about it. You might hear hearsay from people, but that's all you're going to hear. Okay. So, with me and what happened to me, I can tell you that a non-custodial parent has to go and get evaluated in order to see if he or she is mentally or physically fit to care for the child or children. So, in order for me to get visitations with my son after freaking all of the crazy stuff that had happened, they wanted me to go down and be mentally evaluated to see if I was mentally capable, mentally and physically fit to take care of my child. Okay? And this, mind you, is with no issues that have ever came up about my mental state at all. I mean, I did recover from freaking alcohol and drugs, but I believe at the time I was well over 9-10 years sober by then. You know what I mean? Like, that was a far part of my past at that point. So that was one issue that freaking was gone, you know. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm talking about with a lot of this stuff when it comes to civil law. This is what happens with people who aren't even charged with a criminal crime. Okay, this is what the government gets away with. And when I was talking about the plenary powers, it's passed on to these organizations like the Catholic Social Services and freaking other organizations that are supposed to, you know, take care of like transporting the child to visitation, stuff like that. If they need to be taken out of the home, they put them in temporary foster care, stuff like that. These are the organizations that does it. So the Department of Family Services doesn't even do their job, which isn't really their job. It's the juvenile court system's job. But it was handed off to them by the judiciary, plenary powers, and then they extended it to this Catholic Social Services, okay, to do their job. Again, so you have freaking 3 different organizations that are making money off of this stuff, alright? Now, that is what I'm talking about when it comes to corruption in the government, and they do this with the prison systems. Somebody's got to freaking bring food in to the freaking prisoners in the cafeteria, so they create a monopoly there, you see. So now you have to go down and you have to take tests to be evaluated to see if you're able to freaking cook food for prisoners in a prison or provide food to the cafeteria. So that's just a deliberate, you know what I mean? It's one big scam, one money maker. It's how they make money. And this is the kind of stuff that they're doing. Now, from what I've just told you, you know, even these freaking organizations are making money to find out if you're freaking mentally or physically fit to take care of your children. So there's another organization who's making money off of you, you know. Now, before I even showed up for court, I also want to mention something that the circuit clerk did. Now, the circuit clerk, I found out, is able to do this too. They're able to file what is called a dispositional order that states that a non-custodial or a custodial parent is unable to care for, protect, train, or educate their children. Okay? Now, this can be done without any explanation for why the order was filed. They can just file it, and usually they file it automatically. So if there's any kind of trouble that happens concerning your son or your daughter or your daughters and sons, the circuit clerk is automatically going to file this. It's called a dispositional order, okay? And they will automatically file it on you, okay? And this can be done without any explanation for why it's being filed. This can also be filed without knowledge of the non-custodial's parents' whereabouts or the diligent search for the non-custodial parent being done. So even if the non-custodial parent isn't even in the situation and they're not even aware that this is going on, the circuit court can still say that they are unfit to freaking care for their child. They don't even know anything about this person. You know what I'm saying? And these are all illegal, non-governmental organizations who are getting away with doing this stuff. All they have to do is tell the freaking juvenile court that they need this and they need this, and the circuit clerk and the juvenile clerk courts and all of them just freaking jump in line and they file these cases. You know, the circuit clerks also have the ability to freaking confiscate everything that freaking somebody has when a criminal case takes place. Now, I was talking about not even being charged with a crime. There's another scenario that can happen where a circuit clerk can steal your shit. And how they get away with this is because of civil case. Now, say you got a son again, and you're going to work, you're coming home, you're not paying attention to what's going on. And while you're at work and you're not paying attention to what's going on, your son's smoking freaking pot in your garage. Well, guess what? Cops roll up, they bust him in your garage with marijuana. And because it was in your garage, the circuit clerk has the right to frickin' go in with the police and confiscate everything you have in your house because your son was smoking pot on your property, okay? And they can take it. They not only do they take it, but in order for you to get your stuff back, you don't even go to see a judge. Okay, the judge doesn't even watch over that stuff. You have to go to the circuit clerk in order to freaking file papers to try to get your stuff back. Judge doesn't even care about it. Doesn't even reach the judge's desk. Has no care about it whatsoever. And these are the kind of things that are going on here in the United States. So with all of that and all of my long-winded preaching, I am going to leave it alone. I'm gonna let you guys hopefully enjoy your day. I'm glad that I freaking was able to go through all that and get it done, because that was something that I really wanted to do. And see, this was the direction that I was wanting to take on that conversation. I wasn't wanting to talk about the Red Pill Nation or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Naroki 5 and they were good guys, you know, but that just wasn't the direction that I was wanting to go with that. And I still sorry, I still to this day don't hold any hate towards my ex or both of my exes, you know, especially my youngest boy's mom, because of the situation that happened. You know, it was the stuff that happened with the court systems was way worse than what happened concerning her, if that makes any sense. You know, I would hate to have to be a woman having to go through that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry if you're a married man and you got separated from your kids. I understand that. That's a horrible thing too, you know, but this is a situation that didn't concern that kind of scenario, you know what I mean? The thing is what I didn't mention before was she had a drug addiction that wasn't even properly cared for. In most states around here, they have like a drug court or some kind of program where these women and men are forced into them because they'd committed a crime. First, they have to commit a crime. They have to be charged with something, and then they go into these courts, and then they have to show up for drug court in order to get through their program. Well, my ex never got charged with any crimes. And the bad part was is she almost freaking died in front of my son trying to take these freaking pills, and nothing ever came out of that. She just had to freaking do what the DCFS wanted her to do. And they never put her on a serious drug program or anything like that. They actually went as far as saying that she needed to lock her prescriptions up so that she couldn't get to them. She had to lock them up. And then when the freaking counselor came to see her, she counted how many pills that she had and stuff like that. Just ridiculous things of that nature is what they were doing, and they weren't taking it serious whatsoever. So my ex-girlfriend never got the help she needed. My son was moved out of her house to his grandparents' house, 2 houses down, so that instead of having to watch his mother freaking slowly kill herself in the house, he could sit 2 houses down and watch it. You know? I find that appalling that freaking their whole job is supposed to be reunifying the family and worrying about the safety of the children, but in the end they don't care about that one bit. You know what I mean? They did absolutely nothing constructive. They didn't reunify the family. I mean, it got horrible with my son and his brother, my son's oldest brother, her oldest boy. Then the drug addiction eventually sent her off to where she ended up in frickin' prison, I believe. I don't know. Jail. I know she's gonna be gone for 2 years. They busted her with meth. You know, because this court system's a joke. They don't care about you. They care about your money. They want to frickin' use the children to frickin' exploit you for your money, and that's all they care about. I don't care what anybody believes about that. I know it because I've seen it. Thank goodness it wasn't me. You know, that's all I can say. But I did witness it. And I love my kids. That's the one thing I can say. I do love them. We might not get along a lot, but at least they know I do love them, and I'll tell them I love them every chance I get, you know, because they don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. So I'm coming up on 2 minutes before the hour, and I am going to go ahead and end the recording and stop the streaming. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Later on we can get into I do want to cover freaking positivism and natural law. So I know this might be boring for a lot of you guys, but I do want to cover this stuff because these are the kind of things that are going on in our court systems, and I've said it in previous episodes that you can sit around, you know, bitching and arguing with each other about Donald Trump and frickin' dipshit, whatever. I forgot his name. Joe Biden, all day long, but this is the shit that's going on in real life. This is the stuff that freaking is going on that you're not hearing about until freaking they're knocking on your door. So I'm gonna keep talking about this stuff. I could easily get on here and just bitch and yell about all the horrible stuff that's going on when it comes to the mudslinging, and yeah, I am voting. I am gonna vote, but that's as far as I'm gonna say it, But for me, this is the kind of stuff I want to bring to people and I want to talk about. So if you're interested, keep showing up and listening. If you want to join into the conversation, you're more than welcome. So with that being said, I'm gonna shut up and I'm out of here.